All right, welcome back to the OG Rivals podcast. I'm Myles, one of your hosts here, Packer fan on this podcast, and joined by the Bears fan, the other half of this podcast, Sir Miguel Prado. Welcome, sir.
Welcome. Thank you, Myles. Very excited to kick off this podcast. We had some moving parts this week. I was at a corporate work conference throughout the week, and I think you're at a wedding here.
That's
So
right.
I just wanted to
On location.
definitely just enjoy that we're getting together and kicking this off. Week one behind us, week two right in front of us, and boy, do we know what's at stake this week.
Yes, sir. We got a big one this week. We got we got a big head-to-head OG Rivals clash. So we got to address that. We got to have a little bit of a reaction to last week coming out of the gate. It's obviously our first real football, so we can't just leave that totally behind us. But very, very excited about all the stuff that we got to cover today. I'm going to take all the Packers fans on a quick trip through Panic-ville and right on back into Relax Town. So just sit tight for that one. And then obviously we've got some credit due to all the Bears fans out there. Excellent win in the first week. Didn't see it coming, to be honest. But we're going to dive into all of that. But first, this week's episode is brought to you by LifeLeaf Remedies. We want y'all to feel better today. We are out there making effective natural remedies by combining cannabinoids like CBD, CBDA, CBG, CBN, CBC, and a lot more with natural vitamins, minerals, and even fungi. There's a lot of excellent synergies that we can accomplish through those things being combined. So we're doing a lot of work with that. We're just getting started. But if you want to take better care of yourself with natural remedies, check us out at lifeleafremedies.com today. Get free shipping and 10% off your order when you subscribe to any of the products, and feel better today, y'all. And Miguel, tell them what they got to do if they enjoy listening to this podcast here.
Absolutely, Myles. And you already know you have to spike that like button, leave us a comment, subscribe, hit that subscribe button, and talk about us at your next tailgate. And this next tailgate, Myles, is going to be in Lambeau, in Green Bay.
Oh.
I know that Green Bay, they have announced that they will be setting off fireworks an hour before kickoff to remind all you drunk Green Bay fans that it's time to start heading towards the stadium and enjoy Sunday Night Football. We've been talking about it this entire podcast. Week two, it's here, but we want to do some reflection. Is that correct?
It's necessary, right? I think we had a pretty big opening week. I wouldn't call it boring at all. Disappointing on my half of things, and pretty exciting on your half of things. So fair to
Well,
react to those and see what we can maybe expect from each other here in week two.
well, I'll tell you what. I know you don't like to talk about curses, Myles, but you did mention how delicious those cheese curds are, and I just want to go on record and say that I did have some cheese curds before Sunday of week one.
Okay.
I don't know if that impacted the game at all, Myles, but I just want you to know that I did enjoy some delicious cheese curds, which brings us back to how did you enjoy week one? Where were you? How'd you watch the game?
So I was at home, multitasking as most fathers have to do, even on Sundays when football season rolls around. But yeah, a lot of my viewing is done from my office, my little cockpit area that I got there. I got the TV on the wall. I got my computer screens in front of me. I did get to enjoy a cold beverage, but ultimately was quite disappointed. Unfortunately, didn't get to have any real celebratory activities or anything like that. So,
All
you know,
right.
once we saw things getting out of hand, I tried to make it as normal a Sunday as possible, move on to making dinner and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You speak of curses. At that point, we were looking forward to the Cowboys game. I was certainly sitting
Yikes.
there not necessarily hoping
Yikes.
for the best for the Cowboys. Certainly never hope for anybody to get hurt. Definitely want to see Dak come back as soon as possible, as strong as possible. But, I wasn't having good thoughts for the Cowboys game. I definitely wanted to see them lose, not for quite that reason. But, yeah, so, I kind of had a sour taste in my mouth Sunday evening at home preparing dinner. But what about you, man? Where did you get to enjoy that victory?
Yeah, I enjoyed it just like we talked about on my couch, in front of the TV. I did have Shinerbach, and I was knocking on wood. I did also have the TV set at 54 volume to start. You know me, Miles.
That's
I'm
where I
making
went
sure
wrong.
that this. Yeah,
That's where I
see,
went
and you
wrong.
said
I
it.
just
You
discovered my
said it.
mistake. That's where I went wrong.
But
I
you
didn't do
said
it.
it. You said it last episode. You said that is something that I'm going to have to be mindful of moving forward. And something tells me that you weren't mindful of it.
I was not.
Oh,
I
geez.
definitely let that slide. I could not tell you what the volume was on. It was probably in the neighborhood of 12, but definitely higher than 12. 12's a little bit too low. And not a Hall of Famer yet, I guess technically, but you could make it work. So yeah, I definitely dropped the ball there. So
Okay.
guys,
All right. Well, let's talk about it.
if you want the short version, it's my fault we lost. That's
Okay. I think that's what
where
the
it
people
is.
want to hear, Miles. I think that's what the listeners they want to hear some accountability. But let's talk about going on this journey and coming full
Yes.
circle from Panic Town to Relaxville.
All right. So, there's certainly a lot to dislike from this last game. The drop from Christian Watson out of the gate was a bit of a tone setter. Certainly, you don't need to beat the kid up. Nobody feels worse than him at that point. He knows he just dropped one of the, like a legendary start to an NFL career there. But I think that there definitely needs to be a little bit of a silver lining. He was lined up on Patrick Peterson, and he flat out toasted him. Patrick Peterson never stood a chance on that, and it was not close. So, there's a lot to look at, and I think that got everybody's attention. Every defensive coordinator in the league saw that play. And so yeah, that was really a gut punch to start the game, and it just never got better.
Let's pump the brakes right here. He had him beat, right? He had more than a step. I'd call it more than a step.
Oh, he toasted him.
Yeah. I just want to make a comparison here. In the playoffs, I believe it was 2020 playoffs, the Bears played the Saints, and they were dogs. They were underdogs, but they were playing them tight early. And Mitch Trubisky floats a beautiful ball into the end zone, and it hits Javon Wims in stride in his hands, and he drops it early in the game. And something didn't feel right with that drop. That you just, the moment it happens, right? You're obviously you're kicking yourself. Should have grabbed that ball. Should have had it. That's a touchdown. But very quickly realizing like you can't get over it. You're still thinking about it here in the second quarter because it's a what could have been. And he would have walked that in the end zone. Is that correct, Christian Watson?
Oh yeah, I don't think there's any doubt about it.
Yeah.
He had 5 yards on the nearest defender when he dropped that ball, and I don't think he was slowing down if he had caught it. So, no, and it is, and you're talking to somebody who dropped plenty of balls that didn't feel good. It's a gut punch, and it is hard to recover from, especially if you can't get right back out there and try to catch another ball. If you can get out there, even if it's a short one, right? If even he comes back to him on a slant or something quick or easy on the next play, that can help, get that short memory established and move on. But we saw the opposite of that, it looked like to me, and I think that's where that journey of panic needs to begin. I I got on Twitter and certainly had some impulsive reactions to the game, and I think that they were, continued once we were able to go back and look at some of the film and clip it up and see how things unfolded for the offense specifically. Aaron Rodgers gets out there, and obviously it's been publicly known he's going to be very critical on these young guys, and they better be ready, and I expect everything of them, and all this and that. And then Christian Watson drops the first ball. Well, yeah, that sucked. And then Romeo Doubs quickly made a mistake after that. Well, that sucked too. He got a chance to correct his mistake, with a couple of catches, but you've got to be able to move on from that. And the play from 12, the rest of that game said, I'm not even looking at these guys, which to me is irresponsible. That's negligence, right? Like if you're out there, if you're out there to perform your best, right? If you're the 4-time MVP, you're a Super Bowl champion and Super Bowl MVP, and you're out there to hold these guys accountable, sir, what are you doing? How are you not playing the best brand of football for the team? How are you seeing these guys, or maybe not seeing these guys, wide open in a lot of cases? And I get it. There's progressions you got to go through. There's certainly a lot of excuses for why he couldn't see those things, and you guys can give him those if you want. But I expect the back-to-back MVP to have better vision than that. Certainly after a drive or two of it. Like if you because that's what they do. You see it. They show it on the national broadcast. He goes and he sits down on the bench and he looks at the iPad. And there's a classic meme of him throwing the iPad after he looks at it. He sees those looks. They look at him immediately. Okay, you get those images and you can see how the play unfolds. And it may not be full video that he's looking. I think maybe it is at this point. I would be kind of surprised if it wasn't. But point is it's not like he had to wait to fly home and look at the film to be like, oh, dang, those guys were open. No, he's seeing those things almost immediately, and they didn't correct them. That's the biggest issue that I have. So I have an issue with that. One of our loyal Cowboys fans thinks I'm wrong, and that's fine. I'm totally cool just agreeing to disagree. His point is
wrong on what?
Well, his point is, and I maybe have not established my argument properly, but basically what I had said was, hey, Rodgers, you're gonna be glaring at people for their mistakes. Maybe don't make so many of your own. Keep your side of the street clean. And his argument is he's the back-to-back MVP, Hall of Famer. He can be an asshole. It's like, yeah, he can be an asshole if he's playing like a Hall of Famer. If you're playing like an asshole and overlooking people and they're open and you're not hitting them, or you're not finding these guys and you're losing, and like, again, it's not like they were winning and he was playing well and still overlooking them. That's one thing. But they looked like shit. And, it's kind of tongue-in-cheek to say they looked better than the first game last season, which is true, but not a great, bar to measure against.
So hear me out neutrally, right? Not as a Bears fan, not as a Packers fan.
Hit me.
But just a man, right? And why I say that is leadership and a young rookie. And you drop a ball, you're kicking yourself. You don't need anybody else to. You're down. You're down in the dumps. You're down in the dumps. And everybody that was watching that late afternoon game, what do the moment that Christian Watson drops that ball? They cut to 12. Yep. They cut to 12, and he's pouting and rolling his eyes, and body language is. You don't think Christian Watson saw the body language when he turns around?
He absolutely did, and that's my whole point. It's like
Yeah,
that
and I
doesn't
say
help.
this as I didn't want to say that as a Bears fan, right? Because I'm not beating up Christian Watson here. He's a rookie, right? Should he have caught the ball? Yes. I'm not saying he, like, hey guys, let's cut him some slack. But as 12, and yes, he can be an asshole. He's the back-to-back MVP. I get that. But what's more productive in that moment? It's like, hey man, I'm going to go right back to
Exactly.
you. I'm going to go right back to you. Right? And that's how you
Exactly.
win football games, Myles, is you need to
Yes.
have everybody laser focused and motivated that next rep, that next play. Hey, I just needed to beat Patrick Peterson again. I'm coming right back at you. Um, and I think
Yeah.
that's where 12, in my opinion, at that moment did set a tone. He set a tone for the rest of the game. And I don't think anybody that is an intelligent football fan thinks that he just wasn't seeing the field properly. This is the back-to-back MVP. You said the amount of knowledge, the amount of situational awareness, just the amount of time that he's been playing at an elite level. He knows where every man is on that field, offensive jersey or defensive jersey. So the fact that you're not throwing the ball or even looking at specific routes that are being ran, I feel at that point it's intentional and it's selective. At that point, you have selective vision on the field. And to do that, I think, like you said, is negligent. And I'm not trying to beat
Yes.
up on Aaron Rodgers or Christian Watson or the Packers, but I just feel like he owed those young guys more than what he gave them.
Yes, and I agree with that. And again, you asked the right question. What's the most productive thing at that moment? Yes, you can talk about all-time greats: Kobe Bryant, Michael Irvin, or Michael Jordan, Michael Irvin too.
See, there's
He's
a subliminal Freudian slip there from
kind of an
Cowboys fan.
asshole. Um, a lot of examples of the greatest of all time being assholes, and there's nothing that's fine. But those people are like that. I'm getting too passionate on my mic here.
Yeah,
Those
let's
people are
go. We're
like
back,
that.
baby.
They are performing like Hall of Famers when they're being assholes. If you are playing like a rookie or playing negligent football, you are not playing the best brand of football that you are capable of. And I'm sorry, dude, you're the back-to-back MVP. So I expect the best of you. You don't get to earn these accolades and then, and he's been very vocal about, again, the leadership and his relationship with the coach and the guys and kind of how he's just kind of his role with everything. Dude, if you are going to take that leadership role, you have got to at least be trying your hardest if you're going to be pointing fingers at other people for their mistakes. Now, I'll say that that's just not the most productive way to do it. And I would like to give some credit to my old head coach, Cerrone, Pat Cerrone. He's no longer, he retired, but UW Oshkosh football head coach for a while. I can't even remember how many years. Excellent coach, but he was very clear about, look, I'm not going to get after you on game day. There's no point to it. It's not gonna help you at all. But man, did he get after you in practice? Practice, film room, there was no holding back. That guy said some of the craziest things I've ever heard. Can definitely not repeat them on a podcast. Not in a bad way, but just in sort of like a raw way where you're just like, dang, man, like he's cutting to the chase and telling you like it is. And that's what you need in those times on game day when the young receiver drops the ball. Again, nobody feels worse than he does. So beating him up is only going to make it harder for him to come back and actually play the way he's capable of playing, which is what you need him to do. So if that's what you need him to do, pick him up and then beat him up later, right? And that's actually kind of brings me to my next point about Aaron Rodgers. The panic is that he was playing like just garbage. So panic about that you're still seeing that he's repeating kind of this pattern of every now and then I'm just going to show up with a garbage game, and then I'll go on a 13-14 game tear of being the MVP again. But that's concerning to me. That's a problem. especially going against a Vikings team where you shouldn't really need anybody to tell you how important that is. It doesn't matter if it's the first game. Last year there's the argument, well, maybe they treated that first game like the fourth preseason game. I made that argument. They were playing the Saints. That's not a divisional game. So it's kind of acceptable at that point. A divisional game against the Vikings, against the Bears, even against the Lions, at game 1, game 17, doesn't matter. That is brotherly blood. You have to win that game. There's a hatred there. And they talked about it. And so it just bothers me that they're still showing up with this lackluster performance. That's the panic. Here we go on to why we should be encouraged and not totally panicking for the season. And it is the new old QB coach, Tom Clements. And something that's interesting that Aaron Rodgers said about that hiring and him essentially coming out of retirement, I believe was the case, is Tom Clements was his first QB coach, and he was there when they won the Super Bowl. I mean, he was the QB coach for Aaron Rodgers for a long time. He's a guy that holds Aaron Rodgers accountable. And what Aaron Rodgers is going to have to do, and like I said, he sees the looks on the sidelines. On the sidelines, he knows. He's seeing those things and knows where the mistakes are being made. Next step is he's got to sit in the film room with the offense and watch every one of those plays and break down exactly what happened and why. So eventually, he's going to have to talk through whether or not he saw something, what he saw, why he saw it, what he was looking at. You got to go through all that. And I trust Tom Clements to put his ass on the line and say, hey, man, why are you playing like this? We've seen better than this from you a lot. What is this? So, don't panic completely until you see what happens next. If they come out here and lay an egg against the Bears, full on panic button. I'm jumping on the trampoline of the panic button. But I don't think that's what's going to happen. They always play strong at home. We're coming at home. They always play strong against the Bears. Got a solid record against you guys for the last few years. And so I am confident about them getting this turned around. Matt LaFleur has now, as a head coach for several years, shown that when they lose, they get that shit figured out and they turn it around. So let's see what happens. Let's see how it unfolds. And let's see if we can find some silver linings from this game as we go on here. One of them, and one of them is after looking at all of this, silver lining is that your back-to-back MVP Hall of Famer quarterback is the one who made a lot of the mistakes, not your young receivers. And there's a few, you can go look at the film and see it. And if you want to argue, well, maybe they ran the wrong route here and there, and you don't know that, okay, go watch it. But here's how I really feel confident in saying that. If you go watch him on Tuesday on McAfee's show, if the young receivers were responsible for those mistakes, you don't think he would have been just completely just selling them out on that show the way he did the next day? Amari Rodgers in front of his locker. I don't know. Did you see that?
No, I did not.
So in front of his locker, he's doing his pretty standard media interviews after a practice, and they ask him about Amari Rodgers. And he said that, I think they asked him about the young receivers, and he had some answers, and then they asked him about Amari Rodgers, and he said, he's returning for us. That's all I got on that. This is a second-round pick. That's not how you want your starting quarterback talking about a second-year, second-round pick. Not when you're thirsty for receiving talent, right?
Yeah.
So that, to me, is super telling. He's willing to sell these guys out, and I believe I was the one who predicted that it was Amari Rodgers that he was directing his comments to after the Saints practice, where he started getting pretty vocal about the criticism. That was telling. If you're not doing well, he's going to kick you right under that bus, and he did that to Amari Rodgers, and I feel for that guy. He's not performing very well, but your starting QB could maybe help your morale and help your performance, and I don't know. But maybe I'm a softie from that perspective, and that's fair. But overall,
we're in relaxed town now.
Not quite yet. Not quite yet.
Not quite yet.
Relax Town comes with this next half where you look at what the young receivers did. Well, I think the young receivers did pretty darn good. They were definitely getting separation in a lot of instances. But one thing that we saw, and nobody has really done, and I haven't listened to all the shows. Maybe somebody said this. If you have, don't come at me like I'm some kind of jackwagon stealing your line or something. But I have not heard anybody talk about the fact that Christian Watson was the lead blocker on the one touchdown that they scored, and he was blocking Harrison Smith. Y'all, if Nine can block, if he can block, sit tight. Because when Lazard comes back, Lazard is the best blocking receiver in the league. I will stand by that. You come back and you get him on one side and you get Nine on the other side, and you just got bully ball going on. You want to know what that looks like? That looks like the Georgia Bulldogs, their offense. Their receivers are complete bullies. DBs get just pummeled play after play when those dudes are blocking, and it is receiver coaches, I'm sure, are using that film all over the place. And if they're not, there should be. If you got Christian Watson blocking even 75% as good as what Lazard is doing, man. Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon are going to run absolutely wild. And that's going to open up the play action. You're going to have all sorts of options for this offense to go. So that's where we start getting into Relax Town, guys. There's a lot of upside in this offense, and it was on film. It was put out there. They're seeing it now when these guys look at it this week. Other teams are seeing it when they analyze this film. There's talent. Romeo Doubs looked good. I didn't get to see as much of him blocking, but Nine was absolutely critical in that one touchdown that they scored on the goal line, blocking probably a Hall of Fame safety. Harrison Smith is one of the best in the game and has been for a while. So Nine can block. Your offense is going to be okay as long as Aaron Rodgers gets his head out of his ass, and I think Tom Clements is the man to do it. So now we're in Relax Town. The defense is fast, y'all. The defense is fast. And I know Justin Jefferson torched him. He's faster. It is what it is. He's probably, top 3 receiver in the league right now. Quay Walker is fast. Anyway, we'll get there. Quay Walker is fast. Defense is fast. Joe Barry, he did exactly what he did in the opener last season against the Saints. He got torched by sitting in a bad zone, and he didn't adjust. Why didn't he adjust? I don't know. But that's what they're hopefully addressing this week. What happened last time is he adjusted and became one of the best defenses in the league. So, again, we got to sit tight and see how they do. But the talent on the field, they are fast. If Darnell Savage is one of your weakest defensive players on an 11-man unit, you're doing all right. And he might be. I think he really might be at this point. The one play where he just got absolutely turned around by Justin Jefferson, he's just got to be better than that at this point. But, again, we got to see what happens after game 1. We can't base an entire season off of one game. We've seen that before. So we're in Relax Town now. There's a lot of reasons to look up here, and we've seen this group adjust. We've seen them make mistakes and correct them. So we have to have faith that they will do that again. So that's where I'm at. I'm in Relax Town again, but I'm not too far from going back on the panic button if the Bears come out and just hand us a whooping at Lambeau Field's opener. That is really going to put me in a bad place.
Well, if that happens, then we're 0-2 up in Green Bay. Panic Town, I think at that point it's worth examining Panic Town a little bit. I'm in Relaxville right now. My feet are kicked up. I
hit me with it, man. Tell me why.
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. I'll tell you what, the first half, Myles, of that early afternoon game between the Bears and the Niners, that first half, it's not a great start. It was not a great start. But it's one of those, and this might sound familiar, it's when you let a team hang around, right? Like when you're playing, quote unquote, a team you should beat, and you let them hang around, you're setting yourself up for disaster. And I will say this immediately, is there were a lot of bad first halves under Matt Nagy, and you're like, okay, something needs to happen in the locker room at halftime. Some adjustments need to be made, and you just come out and it's the same thing. What we saw was this team came out in the second half and made adjustments immediately, and I would tip my cap there to the coaching staff. That's soaking in, no pun intended, very wet game. It was pouring rain, but soaking in what you're seeing, and having the understanding of a chess match, right? It's like, okay, well, this is what they're doing. Here's what we need to do to stop that, or to compete there, and here's what we need to do to maybe be aggressive. And the ball started coming downfield a little bit more in the second half, or in the first half. There wasn't a lot of shots that were being taken, and you got to imagine that they're trying to play safe, right? But again, that's not how you win games. And it wasn't until that second half until the Bears started putting some points up on the board, and that's when as a fan you're thinking, oh boy, this one might fall our way, right? And I want to stay true to my prediction. Was that and I think this is important, right? Because I didn't say the Bears were going to come in and dominate and blow them out of the water. I said they're going to come out, be competitive, and I also said that they're going to sneak up on some teams and steal a few games. I don't know if you remember that, Myles, where I mentioned they're going to steal a few games, and they're going to win a few games where Justin Fields was the X factor. And I believe he was the X factor in this game. A lot of people will point to the 3 turnovers that were generated. Taking the ball away, always a great formula to win a football game. But I think Justin Fields throwing 2 touchdowns in that rain sent a message that to the team that was already having fun. They were flying out there. And I think that's something that, is great to see, is that they're playing as a unit. They're playing team football. But Justin getting those touchdowns on third downs, both of them were thrown on third downs. That is Aaron Rodgers-esque, right? Those third down, game-changing plays. The first touchdown, play breaks down a little bit, and we'll talk about this in a moment. He rolls outside, he settles his feet down, his eyes are downfield the entire time, and because his eyes are downfield, he sees Dante Pettis, a former Niner, wide open. Catches that ball, gets it in for a revenge touchdown, and like you mentioned, those wide receivers were I was going to say coaching downfield. They were blocking downfield because they've been coached, right, to do so. Hey, let's block somebody, open up a lane, and sure enough, Dante Pettis takes that to the house. On the second touchdown, Equanimus St. Brown wide open, right, and the beautiful part about this play is that Byron Pringle was wide open underneath for a touchdown. And we talked about this, Myles. I think it was episode 3, when the critique was, well, Justin Fields throwing these balls to wide open receivers. I want to see some contested balls. No, why? Why do you want to see that? Throw it to a wide open guy, right? And Luke Getsy now, with that play, has 2 guys wide open against the Niners, right? And this is a team that you can still say is a Super Bowl contending defense. Right. This isn't just some run of the mill defense that came into Soldier Field. This is a highly touted defense, and the Luke Getsy factor, live and in effect. Because Byron Pringle could have scored a touchdown there. Equanimus St. Brown could have scored a touchdown there, and giving your young quarterback options, wide open options. Hey, pick your poison. Throw a touchdown, pick your poison. Boom. Hits Equanimus St. Brown. I think those 2 touchdowns sent a message to the Niners as much as it did to the Bears. And it was, hey, keep taking the ball away. We'll reward you. Because what would happen in years past with brilliant Bears defenses is a lot of the times we just felt robbed of, any sort of production on the offensive side of the ball. They take the ball away and then you 3 and out, give it right back. Right. You got to make them pay. When they give you the ball, you have got to make them pay. And I think Justin Fields did that. Um, but it was a fun game to watch. It was a fun black and blue Bears football. Fun game to watch, and sure enough, 1910 Bears steal a game.
Well, and getting an iconic moment like, sliding in the rainwater, man. I think that those are things that just sort of, a collection of those make a season, right? I mean, that's going to be an image that's stamped on this season now forever, really. I mean, and if you have a great season, then it's even more prominent. But even if you don't, it's sort of I think an iconic moment in Fields' career, um, where, and I noticed this just as an observer, it felt a lot like he was naturally leading that group. It wasn't that he was trying to lead the group, it was that he was just willing that group to follow him, right? And it
Yeah.
showed when he just takes off. And I don't know if he called them to do it. He just takes off and goes for a slide, and then everybody's right there with him. And it just kind of, it looked very authentic, right? Just one of those moments that
Yeah.
happens, and kind of seals a really good morale and energy around a win that you didn't necessarily expect. And
So
it's just cool. I mean, I think that he's growing as a player in my
he's definitely
observation and
growing. What I
opinion.
would say, yeah, no, and I appreciate that observation. What I would say is a nod to the culture here, and I believe it was actually when the Bears were in victory formation, huddling up. It was a lineman that said, "Hey, let's run into the end
Oh,
zone
nice.
and get some slides in." Justin, he took off with that. The leadership in this team, I think, is definitely appetizing. Seeing Roquan Smith before the game. He verbatim said, "I'm willing to die on this field today." Um,
Oh man.
yeah, he had the defense circled up, and he let them know. He said, "Hey, nobody's giving us any shot. Nobody besides who's here in this huddle believes that the Bears are gonna, that we're gonna win." And lets them know, I'm ready. I'm ready to leave it all on the field. I'm ready to die on this field. I'm just asking you to come with me. Just come with me on the field. And I mean, at that point, I think we're starting to see a little bit more of the value. We talked about who Roquan is, and the tackling and all that, but I think Roquan is now growing into a leader, right? And there's no Trevathan on the field anymore. He was, I think, a leader by default with being a veteran, and Roquan being a young guy. But the Bears have bought in to the style of football that Eberflus wants, which is accountability and leadership. And it was very well written about all offseason that he was putting these guys through the absolute ringer, as far as intensive practices at camp. And then a report came out here that during the preseason, the Bears players started really buying into that when they started seeing the results on the football field. And I want to just really quickly go back to those turnovers as another indication of a change of culture. Because we saw Jalen Johnson, who wears number 33, doing something that Bears fans have seen number 33 do a lot of, and that's punch the ball out. Jaquan Brisker comes in, recovers that fumble early in the first half. That sets the tone. And then getting Eddie Jackson back in the takeaway column. That was his first interception since 2019, Myles.
I did
And
hear
and
that.
yeah, and it's one of those where it's like, don't you think that takes some pressure off of him, right? Like, hey, okay, now I'm no longer in this zero column with turnovers. And we said this too going into the season, is now he's playing with someone closer to Adrian Amos, right? Like that skill set that Jaquan Brisker has, of he's willing to go in the backfield and make a play. And he covers well, right? And so that kind of allows Eddie to do what he naturally shines at, and that's coverage. He's a ball hawk. He's not built to go and put his helmet on a 300 250 pound running back, right? Like that's just not Eddie Jackson. It's not who he is. He's more of a finesse guy. And I think that Jaquan, he doesn't mind putting his helmet on anybody. And I think that just allows Eddie to play a little bit more free, which is where we see the turnovers take place, is when he's playing comfortable and free. And so that was nice to see. And I think overall, um, I think that there's some players around the league that are now opening their eyes a little bit more to the skill set that Justin brings. So Jimmy Ward, after the game, being interviewed at his locker, he tips his cap to Justin Fields. Doesn't mention the weather, doesn't mention the turf, doesn't mention the playing conditions. He just flat out says Justin Fields a phenomenal talent. He changes the game, and he does this by scrambling and being an elite scrambler. And so why he mentioned that is he said, we try to run zone. Zones break down when you can move around and extend a play. And he says we try to run man, and man breaks down. We talked about Aaron Rodgers doing just that, is extending plays and then making you pay for that. And so I think that's what's exciting to see, is just some accolades, or I would say acknowledgement, starting to come to Bears QB1.
Well, and one of the things that you and I talked about a little bit is what can you take away from such a sloppy weather, impacted game? And I think that speaks a lot right there, is what Jimmy Ward says. And it's not necessarily that you had a perfect QB rating and that you didn't make a statistical error at all. Like, it's not that. It's what did you do with that set of circumstances? It's very clear to see what their guy did, right? Didn't do very well. But at the very least, you saw Justin Fields battling every single play, man. And then that's one thing you can't take away from the kid is every single time he steps on the field, he's got that kind of like ready for battle kind of look in his eye. And that's valuable, man. That ends up yielding results, even in a sloppy way. A 19-10 win in a torrential rain, right, where you got flash flooding happening and all of that. That is a tough environment to score any points. Throwing the ball at all. I mean, the ball weighs a lot more when it's soaked and drenched, and they try to keep those things dry. But once it's wet, man. Like it's almost an impossible endeavor to keep those things dry. And then, on the other hand, the receivers, gloves or not, it's a harder ball to catch. And some guys with bigger hands, it's probably a little easier to handle that. But bottom line is, when you have that kind of response to adversity, here's your circumstances. It's going to be a lot harder. It was already hard, supposedly one of the better defenses in the league, but now it's going to be a lot harder to score any points at all. And so, yeah, tip of the cap to you guys, to Fields and how he responded and just coming out there and battling and getting whatever points they could. And again, look at the other side. How did they respond?
Exactly. There were two teams out there on the field, two teams that were playing in the rain, two teams that were playing on that Bermuda grass. And I think that's a good little transition to just a real quick cleanup of my side of the street, because I think that David Montgomery, he definitely left a lot to definitely seek out as far as performance out there on Sunday versus the Niners. I think he had 17 carries. He averaged about 1.5 yards per carry. That is not what you
Not
want
good.
from David Montgomery. No, not good.
No.
And because especially at that
Not
point, that's hand the ball off type of weather, right? Like that's like, hey, let's go get 5 yards, sloppy 5 yards on this carry. And also Cairo Santos. He went 0 for 2 on extra points, and he also went on record. Trenton Gill got a unsportsmanlike conduct because he took a towel out to the field, dried up the spot where they were going to kick a field goal. And then the unsportsmanlike conduct takes him out of field goal range. Cairo Santos comes out in the locker room. They're asking Trenton Gill about that. He comes out and says, "Hey guys, that I told him to take the towel out there. I told him to dry the field." And that, I think, did he? We don't. That's a veteran move, right? Like that's one where we could say, like, is he just taking a bullet for his guy, or did he really? But regardless, we go back to that leadership, comment is. He takes that one completely off the shoulders of Trenton Gill, a rookie punter, and takes full accountability for that mistake. I mean, you do like to see that, but at the same time, it's we want more from that position. You can't win a lot of games missing extra points. It changes the game completely. So just wanted to get ahead of that on cleaning up my side of the street. I know you mentioned a couple. And then this weekend is the matchup, right?
Yeah, then we got to start butting heads here in the second half of this podcast. We've been too nice to each other.
Yeah, it's rivalry week. This is why we made this. This is why we made this podcast. It's no secret that Bears fans are not big Packer fans of Packer fans, and vice versa, right?
Exactly.
So let's talk about it.
Yeah, well, I'll own my side of the street here about my statements about the Vikings. Now, look, you're going to have to go a long way, a lot longer, to start talking about championship aspirations and calling Cousins an MVP and all that. That's all still out of line. I'm not backing off on any of that, but they're a better team. Even coming out of the gate with a new front office, new head coach. They look solid. They look like kind of that early Shanahan Lynch days in the 49ers. Looks like there's probably a lot of good energy in their front office. They're, head coach, smart guy, played behind Tom Brady for a while. That doesn't hurt, but then also coached, in the McVay system. And so, they got a lot going for them. I'll give them that for sure. The defense, not surprised that the defense was stout. Not surprised to see Zadarius Smith, though he's a punk, not surprised to see him play well. I mean, he was a beast every time he went on the field for the Packers, but I do think that the way that things ended were probably, not great. And he does seem like a bit of a punk, but, that's part of the business sometimes. That happens. So owning it, Vikings look better than I thought. They look strong on offense. Obviously, Justin Jefferson is just a freak. The guy is phenomenal. I do expect the Packers to be much more prepared for that team the second time around, but we'll get there to that. We're not talking about that today. But yeah, cleaning up my side of the street a little bit.
Yeah, before we move too far ahead here, I did see. I was cracking up about this. I did see you ruffled some Viking fans feathers on Twitter.
Oh yeah,
I think he got a little emotional there, huh?
yeah.
I was dying.
That's why
apparently we have a second rate podcast.
I was like, ooh man, Buzz Zing, he really got me on that one.
Yeah, he got us, huh?
I think it was the Mr. Potato Head gift that I threw at him that really ruffled his feathers. He didn't like that.
Yeah, he was not happy with you, Myles.
But I told him it's not a Vikings podcast, man. Get out of here. I don't care.
Yeah, that's the thing is I don't think, like, they're never going to. We're never going to see eye to eye. We're never going to say, yeah, you know what, Kirk Cousins is an MVP candidate.
No.
Yeah, Kirk Cousins is great. No, it's, they got the W. I did not anticipate it. And I think that's going to be definitely one that you guys will have circled on the calendar. When do you play them again?
I believe it's in November. I got to double check.
Okay.
It's
All right.
further out. Usually the NFL puts the Vikings and the Bears towards the end of the season because there's always playoff implications.
Yeah. Yeah. Divisional game. And the Lions, um, they lost week one. Right. So right now
Yeah,
I think
so all the Dan Campbell hype didn't get to a win, man. That's what do we think? Was it just tough day, slow start, or just Lions being the Lions?
yeah, it's one of those where I'm not putting a lot of stake into week one. I'm happy with some of the results from week one. I think that, and we said this, Myles, is um, no one was giving Chicago a shot. I mean, people had them going 0-16, so happy to put that storyline to
Lazy
bed.
take.
Lazy
Yeah.
take, right? But I said this. I said, hey, they might come out and they might shock the Niners, and then next thing you know, they're going to Green Bay. What's the narrative going to be moving forward? Not sure if you remember that comment, Myles, but I said, just what do you think the narrative's going to? Okay, so now they beat the Niners, and the narrative is that it's the weather, the weather, and uh, I believe it was Bart Scott comes out on ESPN and Bears are 1-0, dogs them, absolutely dogs them. And you look at the power rankings, the Bears are still bottom five. The Niners are, I think, number 8. So I mean,
Yeah,
you
I
got
don't
the
understand
bottom
that.
five team. I don't get it. I don't get it. But we talked about this. Is what happens if they roll into Green Bay and they steal another one? They're 2-0. What are the narratives going to be? And I don't think this happens. I don't think this happens. And I think it's worth. Let's get into week two. Sunday night football. Take the gloves off. Um, I believe that Green Bay bounces back. They get in the win column this week for the 2022 season. Here's what I will say: it's going to be a fun game to watch as a Bears fan because it's going to be competitive. And that's something that you just takes the wind out of your sails in years past is, you're as a Bears fan amped up. It's Green Bay week, right? And it's rivalry week. And they come out flat and just get the brakes beat off of them. Um, I don't think this happens this week. I think the Bears play hard. They play discipline. They play that Eberflus style that we've talked about. I do believe that Green Bay at home, Aaron Rodgers at home. We're back in relaxed town, like you said. I think they right the ship, show a little bit more of who they truly are as a team. Top five defense. Um, I like that though. I like that Justin Fields goes into Lambeau and plays a top five defense because, and call me crazy, but if I'm sitting here on this podcast and saying he's a franchise quarterbacks, they show up to these games, right? It's prime
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And it's Green Bay. It's a division rival. If Justin Fields is who I think he is, then he shows up. Um,
Yeah.
and I believe, maybe not necessarily ready to get into the score. I might need to think about it a little bit, but just gonna be a divisional game, black and blue game. I think the weather forecast is clear sky, so we're going to see a little bit more of who the Bears really are on offense. But I do think that Green Bay wins this game.
Well, let's be clear about one victory that we know, and I think that you'll easily agree with me on this. Green Bay has already handily won the playing surface, head to head. So they're going to have a beautiful playing surface to play on out there. You're going to have no excuses from that standpoint. I'll tell you what. I think that it's an interesting thing for me because this brings into some of our fandom, some of our rituals, superstitions, this and that. Right now, you got all the recipe, all the ingredients for the recipe of the Packers to bounce back and come get a win. And I think that there's a lot of even head-to-head matchups that you could point to and say why you would favor the Packers. And we could probably hit some of those. But that's why I'm looking at this going, usually when the ingredients add up to a win, they find a way to lose. I'm not going to go as far as to pick the Packers to lose here, but I will say that I am more nervous about this game than I was a week ago.
Oh boy.
Hey, I'm not gonna
Uh-oh.
I'm not gonna back off of what we saw some ugly things in week 1 that need to be
Uh-oh.
corrected, and until they can prove those things are corrected, man, I'm nervous. But here's what I'll say. This is where I think,
Are you trap game? Are you trap game nervous, or are you
no,
just
I
more of
think
like Packers may beat themselves here? Do you think the Bears have a chance to beat them, or do you think the Packers just beat themselves like they did with Minnesota?
the reason I'm nervous, and this is I have a long answer for your question. This takes me back to the Brett Favre days, where you knew you had a chance in every game. You had a chance to win every single game as long as Favre was under center, but you also had a chance to lose every game. The guy led the NFL history in interceptions too. So it wasn't all good. But the thing is it was a very strong 50-50, and so I feel like right now it will be a great game, and I think that Fields' athleticism will certainly be a core factor in the game. And I think that there's a lot of things that the game could come down to. It could come down to Fields' athleticism. It could come down to play calling. There's a lot of things here, and if the Packers don't correct some of those mistakes from week 1, absolutely, I think the Bears could come in and steal one. I don't think that that's out of the question at all.
Wow.
But you have to, and I'm not predicting that is what will happen. My prediction is the Packers will win. And here, let me talk about some of these matchups of being why. You guys definitely showed that you can go up against a good defense, right? And the Packers have a good defense. Now, how good, we're going to find out. But when you've got to contend with Quay Walker and Devondre Campbell at linebacker, Justin Fields is not going to have a very easy time and just running all over the place. Those guys are fast and they're smart. We talked about that with the 49ers, and he did still he made some mistakes. It started ugly, but he ultimately was able to win that game. So that's one thing that I look at. Our defense in general is fast. The defensive line is they're winning one-on-ones. Jaron Reed looks like a fantastic addition. Kenny Clark is every bit of Kenny Clark as he's always been. So the D-line looks strong. So I really do think that it's going to be a good test for your offense, for Fields and that offensive line that y'all have put together. But it'll also obviously be a good test for the defense to see, is Joe Barry ready for that kind of a chess match where you're talking about you got Fields and he can extend plays just the same way that Rodgers really has had his way with defenses for in the past. And that's can you adapt to that? Can you make the right calls there when he's flooding out of the pocket and he's got guys downfield? We saw Justin Jefferson absolutely carve up that zone. So you got to do something different. You need to have some kind of deception, some kind of different pressures, some kind of different coverages. You got to do something different. But if you're just going to sit in zone, eventually, just like the safety for the 49ers, what he had said about Justin Fields, eventually the zone breaks down. Eventually man coverage breaks down. So,
and that was Jimmy Ward
we'll
for our listeners.
Jimmy Ward. Yeah. It was escaping me. Jimmy Ward. Yeah, so we'll see. I do think that when you look at the combination of Devondre Campbell and Quay Walker is going to be very tough for Justin Fields to just out athleticism and outsmart.
Well,
They're smart and fast guys.
here's what I'll say is with those fast fast linebackers is we didn't see Justin take off as quickly as he did his rookie year or as quickly as he did in the preseason. And I think this is coaching. I think that they're really instilling in Justin is exactly what Luke Getsy was probably coaching Aaron Rodgers to do, and that's just give yourself some time, right? Like just roll out, settle down, settle your feet down, keep your eyes downfield, right? And because he has the speed to do that, and then finding just where he can absolutely hurt you with someone that might just be wide open. I think Aaron Rodgers does that better than anybody in the league. What I'm saying is
Oh yeah,
that's how you combat those sometimes, and you can say the same thing about the Niners defense is, hey, the Packers Green Bay's defense is fast. The Niners defense
yeah,
is fast. I mean, you can argue the
no
field,
doubt.
the playing conditions neutralize the speed. Um, I like here's what I like about the Bears going into Sunday is the offensive line. Even with Sam Mustipher in there, which is nothing to write home about, right? But the Bears were rotating in Lucas Patrick at that right guard position, Tevin Jenkins. Eberflus had him rotating every two series from kickoff until the final whistle. Um, and I think that's how there was a lot of criticism of that, right? Because it's, oh, well, just let your young right guard get the confidence, leave him out there. Lucas Patrick was, you can argue, your big splash free agent, right? Like your key free agent signing. And he was hurt all preseason. He's probably not in football shape for 4 quarters of football, right? You can just argue that, right, to get the conditioning to that level. And what I like to see is that the Bears were just smacking that Niners defensive line around. And they're mean. They're mean, and that's what you want from an offensive line. And so I just feel a confidence going into Sunday that I mean Green Bay is going to make plays all day, right? And the Bears need to make plays to stay in the game. But I like the offensive line that we're taking into this matchup. And what if there's a silver lining, like you said, is you can say that David Montgomery and Cole Kmet were non-factors versus the Niners. And that just tells me is, hey, what if this is the game that Luke Getsy gets Cole Kmet involved? And what if this is the game where David Montgomery, who left Soldier Field after that win, you can say, hey, everybody was exciting, sliding on the turf. He packed up his bags and was out of there before the media got in the locker room because he probably felt a little bit upset about, the 1.5 yards per carry. And I think he has a chip on his shoulder, right? So it's just another question mark. What if he makes it personal? Not the Green Bay personal rivalry thing, but what if he just wants to show up for himself, right? Like, hey, I know I'm better than 1.5 yards per carry. I think that's exciting. I think another thing that's exciting is the Bears front four. We're putting pressure on Trey Lance. I don't know if you know this from that Niners stat line, but the Bears blitzed 0 times. Their front four was generating enough pressure in the game and had a couple sacks without blitzing. So why that's exciting for this game is you can look at it two ways. You can either open up that defensive playbook and blitz a whole lot, or you can continue to let your front four who are putting their hands in the ground, get after Aaron Rodgers, and then you can drop the rest of the defense into coverage, right? And so you look at it either way. I think it's exciting, and I think the defense, that secondary that we've talked about in the past, I think that they're showing up. I wanted to ask a quick question: is, we've talked about the wide receivers, the offensive line on both sides of the spectrum here. Who do you feel has the edge going into Sunday with wide receivers?
I think the Packers do. I think that, and I think there's something I want to go back to as well, because the Vikings defense and the Bears defense is very, very different, right? Not the same. You got a lot of veterans on the Vikings defense. Obviously there's a situation with Zadarius Smith, but on the Bears defense, you got a lot of young players, definitely a lot of talent, but still guys that are learning certain things. So I'm interested in Aaron Rodgers versus that secondary, just versus that defense, right? I think that when Aaron Rodgers goes against younger guys, he's able to work things that they're just not seeing, right? He's able to kind of exploit things, and it's little stuff. It's not like he comes up with some kind of mystical concept they've never seen. He's just going to catch you off guard, like you've seen with the guys shifting in, getting 12 men on the field, or guys who jump off sides or whatever it is, stuff like that. He's going to find the smallest mistake for somebody to make and exploit it. That's at least what he's been good at, I think, in the past. Again, there's a lot to be seen right now after week one. But when it comes to the receivers, the head-to-head, I get it. You guys had a good first week. But the upside of the Packers receivers, I think, is still higher than the upside of the Bears receivers. And I will go back to the point that I made earlier. If you've got, you saw the speed of Christian Watson. You bring Alan Lazard back, and he's been participating in practice, so we expect him back. If you've got 2 6'5" receivers who can block really well, yeah, man, that group gets better than the Chicago group real quick. For that reason, and you talk about 1.5 yards per carry from David Montgomery, big criticism for the offense from last week is that those running backs didn't touch the ball enough, but their average per carry was high. And that's that they abandoned that too early. These guys were moving the ball, so you got to almost go back to that. And if that's the strength of your offense, which I think a lot of people would argue it is, at least right now, and you've got receivers who complement that, yep, I think that's the case. And when I look at the receivers that you guys have in Chicago, I don't see anybody that has a reputation for blocking. Now, I'm not saying they can't do it or they won't do it or anything like that. I just don't see the reputation for it there.
So, couple things. I think we just uncovered the X factor for Sunday. And we're a big receipts show. So, I would say what I'm scared of is the Bears, inside, defensive line, right? Not the edge rushers, but the inside of that line, and stopping the run. And hearing that the Packers had success in doing that, I think that's going to be a difference in this game. Is those rushing yards that Green Bay can put up on the board, move the football, keep the defense on the field. I think that's probably where the game is going to be won, in the trenches. Obviously, 12 and 1 are going to be making plays. But I would say this is just don't underestimate the Bears wide receivers when we're talking about blocking downfield. Maybe last year definitely would hold a lot more weight. This year, I mean, just pointing back to last week on that Dante Pettis touchdown, they were blocking downfield for him to get to the end zone. And I would say, one thing, take it with a grain of salt, but details wins football games. And the Bears practice um, blocking on takeaways. And it's something that some of the Bears players that have been part of these recent years have said we've never practiced. After a football is intercepted or a fumble is recovered, we've never practiced blocking downfield from that moment. And that just goes to the attention to detail that Eberflus is putting on the emphasis of taking the ball away and blocking. And I say this to come back to the wide receivers is just know that they're being coached to do so. And keep in mind the hits philosophy of an Eberflus coach team is they're being watched if they do so. And I think that goes back to the culture of the Bears. So I'm going to stay true to myself in the wide receiver evaluation that we've had moving throughout this podcast. I believe that in this game, Jalen Johnson is going to lock up Lazard. I'm not too worried about Lazard in this game, and I'm definitely not too worried about Christian Watson in this game. And that brings us to Romeo Doubs. So I would have to stay true to myself and just give the nod to the Bears wide receivers and not take too much away from them. They put up 2 touchdowns.
So hold on.
In week
Sammy
1.
Watkins and Randall Cobb not even in the factor here, not even in the equation.
Not that no. To answer your question, no, not in my equation of these of this wide receiver evaluation.
Okay. Well, and I want to have a little bit of a rebuttal here because you talk about the details. And you may not know this off the top of your head, but do you know what the Bears per carry as a team was from that game against the 49ers, the average yards per carry running a ball?
I know Khalil Herbert, he had he found much more success on the yards per carry, but no, I do not know the average of the team overall.
Okay. Well, so the Packers as a team, as a unit, averaged 6.5 yards per carry. Aaron Jones averaged 9.8 yards per carry. Sir, that does not happen if your receivers aren't playing bully ball. And that's the difference. Like, those are big yards per carry. Those are not small runs. So that's where I'm going to hold true on my unit and say these guys, and one of the reasons why I want to call attention to blocking is for that, but receivers will block more in a game most times than they will catch a ball. Unless you're Devontae Adams, Cooper Kupp, unless you're getting 10, 15 catches a game, you're going to block more times than you're going to catch a ball in a game. So if you're going to be a good receiver unit, you got to be able to block. And you don't have to block, have the best blockers in the league, but you have to have guys doing work downfield. Now, you say you guys are being coached to do that, so we're going to see how that plays out because you're going to have to do that if these guys are going to move the ball against a fast defense like the Packers have. So yeah, that's what I would say to that about details and how some of this plays out and how some of these receivers end up impacting the other side of the game. But it's an interesting matchup, man. As I mentioned, I'm nervous, right? I'm not sitting here saying that the Packers have this in the bag. I think that they need to be looking at this game and bringing every ounce of respect to it that this rivalry deserves and demands, really. So
what kind of game do you think it is Sunday?
Honestly, I feel like we're in for a bit of a shootout. I think the game starts slow. Look, Justin Fields is fast. You guys have fast weapons. When speed is on the field, it's going to find a way. So I think that what this game comes down to is not necessarily who has the ball last, but who can come up with that stop in the fourth quarter that's going to determine the game. it doesn't always happen right at the last minute, but it's going to come down to a defensive stop, whether that's the Packers needing to stop the Bears or the Bears needing to stop the Packers. You're going to need a defensive stop, and whoever comes up with it is going to win that game. And in that case, I do like the Packers. I love Aaron Rodgers with less than 2 minutes with the ball in his hand. I don't think that there is anybody more deadly than him in that scenario at this point. There have been a lot of fan bases devastated by the idea that Aaron Rodgers cannot run down and score on their team with a minute left. We've seen the memes. So, yeah, in that scenario, if it comes down to it, I think Aaron Rodgers can absolutely overcome that Bears defense and come up with the score. And even vice versa, I think that the Packers defense has enough veterans and enough talent to overcome a Justin Fields-led offense and come up with a stop in crunch time. But I do think it'll be a close game. I think that there's going to be some good plays made on both sides of the ball. I don't think it, I don't know that we'll be, 35-35 or something like that. I'm thinking we'll probably both be in the 20s. Most of that happening in the second half. Usually, here's how games usually go, and this is funny because as a fan, and you felt this last week. Fields came out and they made some mistakes early, and we were texting, and you were just like, "Oh, it's going to be a long day." Usually, what happens is the first drive, the offense, the entire drive is scripted. So usually, the first drive is supposed to go well for the offense. Right? If you're the defense, you're in a more reactive mode. You're like, all right, what are they going to come out with? Are they going to come out with what we've seen on film, or are they going to show us something new? When you get that question answered, usually you got to get off the field to get it answered. So you either came up with a stop or you didn't. Then you'll understand a little bit, what you need to do. And we saw that with the Packers on Sunday against the Vikings. First series, not great. Kirk Cousins had his way. They dinked and dunked and got down and scored pretty efficiently. And then the next drive, the Packers came up with a great stop and got the ball back pretty quickly. The game, in my opinion, turned when Quay Walker got hurt. And you saw Justin Jefferson absolutely abuse the underneath side of that defense. And the over-the-top, they didn't help out anymore. That's why I'm saying, Savage has got to be better. Amos has got to be better. They both had pretty poor games from what I saw. But, yeah, man, so I was on a roll there. I can't remember exactly where that point was supposed to go, but I think that the Packers pull it out.
Yeah, the question was, what kind of game do you think it is? And I think you went into some detail of the type of game that's going to be a little bit of a shootout. When you mentioned, it coming down to maybe that last drive, boy, that's where you don't want to be if you're a Green Bay fan, right? Is keeping them close, like I mentioned with the Niners, and I got chills thinking, just envisioning the Bears defense coming up with that stop. I got chills. But here's my I'll go on record. We'll see. I think the final score 24-17 Green Bay. I think Justin, like you said, he moves the ball. He puts a couple touchdowns up on the board. I do feel that Cairo Santos, he's a wild card. It's tough to come back from two misses. Week one, I think if anything, maybe the weather was his saving grace, because that's a little bit easier to kind of like put a blame on it. It wasn't me, it was the weather, right? So I think maybe he comes in, maybe he goes 1 for 2. I think that's going to be something to keep a close eye on. And I think Aaron Rodgers, he puts 3 touchdowns on the board. I don't think we get too far from that 24-17 prediction, because I feel like both defenses are going to. It's going to be fun to watch. I'll leave it at that. I didn't want to go as far as saying, hey, it's going to be a heavyweight fight with these defenses. But I think the Bears are definitely still slept on, and I still will stay true to myself and continue to say they're going to come out and they're going to throw some punches. They're going to smack some people in the face, in the mouth. And I think that's going to be something where the Packers, definitely with the Vikings, saw a little bit of that, like, oh, whoa, we're in a fist fight here. I think they're definitely going to come out and get probably a motivated Chicago team. that's going to come out and be ready to put some hats on the football. And that's what I'm looking forward to. But that's my prediction: 24-17 Green Bay.
I think I would just up it one. I think, Bears get 3 touchdowns, Packers probably get 4, and you're in that 28-21 range. Maybe some missed field goals or something sprinkled in there to knock those points around. But yeah, I think that's probably the game that we're in for. I would even go as far as to predict that you're going to get your scores out of some chunk plays, and then the rest of the game is going to be kind of a tough fought game. You're going to have some 3 and outs in the middle of the game. You're going to probably have a couple turnovers on either side. I would probably bet a little lighter on the Packers having turnovers again. After Aaron Rodgers has a dud, he usually comes out and gets things corrected pretty quick. So I would expect minimal turnovers from the Packers offense. But, yeah, man, I think it'll just be a slugfest, something that we really got to keep an eye on. The Packers special teams looked okay last week. And if I can take credit for saying, guys, let's hold on. The special teams might be okay. I believe they were like 16th in the league. They're right at that definition of okay in the middle of the pack. But they weren't the worst in the league. And I think that's something that we need to acknowledge is, hey, maybe they can make something happen in the special teams units. There's always some exciting plays that happen there, whether they be turnovers or returns. So, yeah, looking for an exciting game, man. I'm pumped up. I love playing against the Bears. I just love real football. Week 2, every game gets more and more meaningful. Hopefully we start getting a little bit colder weather, a little bit more traditional football weather. It's still like 95 degrees down here, so not quite cold yet.
Well, I am excited to have the ability to watch the Bears in a game where the weather is predicted or projected to be suitable for some clear football. And I will say this is that let's just not forget that Justin is cut from a different cloth when it comes to those big moments, right? And he played with broken ribs in the college football playoffs and threw, I think, like four or 5 touchdowns. The kid's just different. He's absolutely different. I think that he's a competitor. He reminds me of, for my Chicago people, he reminds me of Derrick Rose in the sense that he's just stone cold. He's a stone cold killer. He has ice water running through his veins in big moments, in the lights, Sunday Night Football, Lambeau Field. It does not get bigger than that when you're a Chicago Bear quarterback. And for the first time in a long time, I'm not worried about whether or not he can match that moment. I think, Luke Getsy just needs to settle him down. Maybe a couple, quarterback keepers where he settles into the game. And then once he does, I'm just excited to see what he brings to the table in this setting. And that's something I'm going to be watching. Do you want to move into some lazy takes, or do you want to keep going into this matchup Sunday? Because I think this is what this is built for, right?
Yeah, absolutely, and that's why I wanted to kind of put a cherry on top of what you said. I mean, this rivalry has been made of some tough, gritty dudes. You got Brett Favre back in the day throwing with a broken thumb. I get he's not a popular guy right now. We don't have to talk about his personal life. What he did on the field was pretty gritty, pretty tough. I remember really admiring that as a kid and young men trying to play football. And the rivalry's been full of guys like that. I mean, the Bears have had guys play through things. We have Aaron Rodgers a few years ago getting all doped up at halftime and then just absolutely coming back and dealing in the second half. It wasn't pain pills, guys. Don't worry, it wasn't pain pills. He didn't say it wasn't a shot, but it wasn't pain pills. King of semantics over there. But anyway, there's been some pretty gritty moments in this rivalry, and I would have to agree that Justin Fields is a tough dude. He is. He's talented. He's tough. He looks like a great leader. As a Packers fan, I don't want to see a guy like Justin Fields as the quarterback of the Bears. I will say that. I think I said that actually when he was at Ohio State, and I was like, man, this kid's gonna be the real deal. I don't care where he goes, just don't go to the Bears.
Yeah.
But
So Myles,
yeah,
real quick anecdote. So let's go back in time a little bit to the NFL draft in 2021 and set the scene. I was trying to convince myself and getting amped up for, hey, the Bears have a shot at Kellen Mond. That's the depths that I was at as a fan. And we all know what
thank
happens,
goodness
right?
that
With,
didn't
with New
happen.
York and exactly. Thank goodness. Um, and we all know what happens with New York and that leapfrog trade. And the Bears find themselves on the clock at the 11th pick. And they pull the trigger on Justin Fields. He's sitting right there from Ohio State. Do you know what I did that night?
What?
I put myself on the season ticket waiting list for the Chicago Bears.
Oh
The night the,
man,
the
that it
night
was
that they
that big of a
drafted,
deal.
it was that big of a deal. The night that they drafted Justin Fields, I was I had an out of body experience, obviously jumping up and down. Um, Immediately log into to the Chicago Bears website and register as a season ticket waiting list member. And to this day, I get little official programs for the year with all of the coaches and players. I get their little calendar but I always think like back to that moment of why did I do that? And I did that because I believed that we drafted a franchise quarterback. Um, when they drafted Mitch Trubisky, as you can imagine, I was, hands up in the air, like, what? What did we just do? We draft Justin Fields, and I hopped on that season ticket waiting list.
No, and that's the beauties of being a fan, man. Like we're not paid to do these things, right? We get it, but sometimes we can tell. Sometimes there's fan intuition that you just know when your franchise has made a decision that's going to make being a fan very exciting for the foreseeable future. When you sign a big free agent, you draft your draft crush. And honestly, I would say that I had similar feelings this draft when the Packers went and got those two defensive pieces in the first round. I know a lot of people were throwing their hands up. They need a receiver. But, man, I haven't, as a fan, gotten to see what it looks like to have great linebackers at the Packers defense, right? We've had A.J. Hawk. He was fine. He did good, but he wasn't an all-pro, just a game-changing linebacker like the guys in Tampa Bay and some of these other guys that you've seen, Urlacher for a while in Chicago. But you get Quay Walker, you get Devontae Wyatt, you've already got an all-pro in Devondre Campbell. You've already got a strong defense in general. The investment that they've made in this defense is just like, it gets me kind of giddy just like that, right? I'm just excited because for once as a fan, yeah, I mean, we've been spoiled with good quarterback play, but I don't want to be at the mercy of my quarterback all the time, man. Like, I want to look at it like, hey, we got a badass defense, and, maybe the offense comes off the field. I'm excited to see what the defense does next. That's how I felt watching Charles Woodson, that defense that ended up winning the Super Bowl. That defense was so good. Nick Collins, Charles Woodson, all those guys, Clay Matthews, B.J. Raji, that defense was flying around. It was exciting to see what they were going to do next instead of the other side where you've got a liability of a defense and they go on the field and you go, oh, God, all right, just don't let them score. And then they get into the field goal range. You're like, all right, let's hold them to a field goal. And then they get down to the goal line. You're like, come on, we can get away with this, right? And it's like, all right, gave up 7. Like, there's been so many years where the defense is the liability for the Packers, much like the drought at quarterback for the Bears. And it's just exhausting sometimes as a fan where you're just like, guys, can't we have a reason to be excited about this weakness for once? So yeah, I'm with you on that, man. I think a franchise QB is probably the most exciting thing, for sure. But I totally relate to that fan excitement. But yeah, so let's quickly segue into the lazy takes. One that certainly needs to be addressed. You might have one on your list too. But I do want to. There's been a hotly debated topic this week about why Jair Alexander did not go one-on-one with Justin Jefferson the entire game, and I think that as most cases, the right or mostly correct answer lies in the middle. A lot of people wanted to get after LaFleur for saying, well, if we wanted to do that, we basically have to commit to that and change our whole defense for the game. And people are going, well, yeah, what you didn't work. And I think the real answer to that is when you're playing a team like that and you say Justin Jefferson can't beat you, you have to test, see how it goes. And if it doesn't work and you get fried like you did against Justin Jefferson, you try something different. So if your soft zone is not working, maybe disguise it as a soft zone and mix in with some man calls, bring pressure to it, to disguise even further. Try some of that. I'm not asking you to switch to man the entire game. I'm not asking you to put Jair Alexander on him one-on-one every single play. I know that DBs probably appreciate the opportunity to do that, but you don't need to do that. I mean, it's not wise to do that in a lot of cases, right? Like, because of exactly what LaFleur said is then you have to commit to that as a defense. And it's not that you can't, but the problem with that is once you've committed to that as a defense is you've given up some of your element of deception, and why would you do that if you've got a tall task as a defense to overcome? So you're not going to give up that element of deception, but at the same time, they didn't freaking use it. So, you sat in the soft zone. You just kept getting beat over and over again. You didn't change anything. It kind of comes back to the answer of, hey, we just got to wait and see how they adapt. But it's a lazy take to say that Jair Alexander should have been one-on-one against Justin Jefferson the entire game. It's just not realistic in today's NFL. There's way too many moving pieces and way too much deception and way too much of a chess match to pin yourself into a one-dimensional defense. It just doesn't make sense to take that away from yourself. So, lazy take addressed. You got any lazy takes on your side?
You know what? I don't know if I have as many lazy takes as much as just maybe some bold predictions here. I don't think this is a bold prediction, but I think that this week Aaron Rodgers will have to look to his rookie receivers only because I feel like he's going to target Kindle Vildor all game long. And that is usually your slot receiver or your wide receiver 3. So I think that's going to happen. I think that's going to be a difference in the game. A bold prediction. I think that Cole Kmet, he has his breakout game with Luke Getsy this week, and Justin Fields getting him the football. I think he's a much bigger part of the offense. And then I think that David Montgomery, he scores a touchdown this week. So those are my bold predictions for the week.
All right. Well, if we're going to jump into some bold predictions, I'm going to say that Christian Watson enters and makes his real NFL debut. I think that he is absolutely going to find his way behind that secondary at some point. And I don't think he drops that ball again. So, bold prediction, Christian Watson definitely scores a touchdown. We'll see. He definitely scores a touchdown. I think bold prediction number 2 is, the defense comes out and gets some turnovers. I'm going to call 3 turnovers from that defense. We're calling this bold predictions. That's pretty bold to say 3 turnovers from the defense, but I really would love to see that. I think it would be great to see them rebound from last week and kind of what you're talking about. I want to see them come out with an attitude. I want to see them come out with kind of that, if I can take it or borrow from it, that Peanut Tillman just dog where they're coming out and punching at the ball every single play. I want them just like angry almost every single play, and a lot of times if you can bring that with a focus, you're gonna get some turnovers. So three turnovers from the defense, and then fourth bold prediction is that Aaron Rodgers gets 4 touchdowns this week. All 4 of the scores on the offense will come from his arm. It might come on some screens and some dumps to the running backs. I'm not saying they won't be involved, but I think that he gets 4 passing touchdowns this week. He comes back, and he is the owner of the Chicago Bears. After all, I don't think that that has changed at all until I see proof of it.
Okay.
I can't say that it has. So, yeah, third bold prediction there is that Rodgers will give you 4 touchdowns.
All right, last bold prediction here, because those were bold. Those were bold. So I have one last one before we go to the Twitter poll. My bold prediction is I would like to rehash my score prediction. I'll take the Bears by 1 million. I think that the Packers will Bears 1 million, Packers -3. That's my score prediction.
-3. Why can't I get like -7? We're going negative. Give me some.
No, we're going
points
super
here.
fan. No, we're going super fan. Bears 333, Packers -3.
Oh man, that's funny. I love it. No, I'll keep my score where it's at. I have conviction in my prediction.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, man. Your prediction of the Bears and the Packers being in the 20s, 28-21, something like that. Geez, that's an NFC North shootout. That's points flying. But I'm excited. I cannot wait. I'll give you another bold prediction. I over under 5. Well, hold on. I'll backtrack here because I was just had to put down some beers on Sunday night. But we had a wager last year, so we should definitely put a wager on the show. Do you want to do the case of beer like we did last year, or what's the wager?
I was thinking about a wager because we really do need to do something to go a little further for this game than we will for the rest. I don't know. I mean, we could do a case of beer, but I'd kind of like to do something a little bit more humiliating. Like losers got to wear the other one's jersey on this podcast.
I can't wear a
something
Packers
like
jersey. That. It make my skin crawl. I can't do it. Especially not like this isn't even a game where I'm taking the Bears to upset them. So it's just like, I think the Packers win, so I'll just sign up to wear a jersey. I can't. If anything, like if it's an NFC Championship game, maybe we can get to that level. But I think a case of beer is going to be good for this game that I have them losing.
All right, we'll let it escalate as the season goes on.
We'll have to.
Works for me.
Yeah. You want to get into the Twitter poll?
Well, I don't think we had a huge response to the Twitter poll. So screw the Twitter poll, and it's our fault. We didn't go off and promote it. We're tossing the Twitter poll. We got 3 votes from it, so we're just going to toss it out. So what I want to do is ask you, sir, what are you doing for this game? How are you watching this? What's the plan here? Are we going to live stream this game? Should we do that?
Oh, baby. Well, I don't know, but I might be too nervous. I really want to just immerse myself in this game. I'm going to be at home. I already know what spot on the couch I'm going to be on. I think I showed you these here before, and if you're listening on Spotify or Apple, you won't see this, but my little coasters are carved out Soldier Fields
pretty cool.
coasters here, so I'll be resting my beer on that during the game. But how about you, Myles? Are you going to be up at home in the office, or are you going to make your way to the Packer bar?
So I'm not going to be able to make my way to the Packer bar. Turns out once you have kids, that's a much harder thing to accomplish. I will be in I will be in the cockpit. I will be watching in the office, maybe go between the office and the living room, depending on the energy. If they do well while I'm in the living room, I'm going to stay in there. If they do well while I'm in the cockpit, I'm going to stay in there. If you got to change the energies, you go to the other room. We got to get the fan rituals down, y'all. If you don't get them down, it's your fault that we lost. You just got to own that and accept it. But yeah, so
Absolutely.
I will be watching at home.
Let's make it a game time decision. If we can stomach a live stream, I just really want to, I really want to savor the game. And to your point, like you mentioned, how you really don't appreciate people chirping when you're at a Bears bar or the Packers are losing at a Packer bar. It's one of those.
It's just not what you need.
It's not what I need. But I'll tell you what our listeners can expect here is us getting back on track and getting these reactions with probably a little bit more emotion closer to the game. I just wanted to say thank you to whoever's tuning in because of the little bit of the deviation from our schedule here with me being out of town, and I know Myles, you're traveling here, so just wanted to say a quick thank you to the fans, Packer fans, Bear fans, NFL fans tuning in. Thanks for sticking with us here.
Oh, thank y'all. This is we're getting this thing off the ground. We're still trying to work on improving it as much as we can, but the best way to improve it is to do it. And so here we are. I'm on remote location here. Shout out to Chris and Sophie getting married this weekend down here in Austin, Texas. Congrats to you two. Love you both, and can't wait to see your lives together. Love it. Can't wait. Standing up in that wedding tomorrow. We got the rehearsal dinner all knocked out tonight, so that was fun. But no, we got to keep this podcast going. So, yes, big thank you to y'all tuning in, listening this deep. If anybody's listening this deep, maybe a couple trolls are out there listening this deep. But, yeah, man, very excited. And I think that as we go, a live stream might be in order at some point. Maybe not this game, and maybe we could just do like a half, so we're not committed to the whole thing. We'll have to see, but we're gonna try to do as much as we can to make this thing more fun as we go. I definitely want to get some other folks involved. Want to get some of our Cowboys fan friends involved. Anybody else who's out there that wants to defend yourselves, except for the Vikings, you're not welcome. We get to beat you up without you defending yourselves at all on this podcast, because those are our rules and we made them because it's our podcast. So if you don't like it, don't listen.
Well, I'll tell you what. If a Viking fan ever makes it onto this podcast, it's probably gonna be a special one. I can tell you that. Besides that, congratulations to your friends, Mazel Tov. That's awesome. Congrats to them getting married, tying the knot tomorrow. We are late into the evening here, and so
absolutely
it is my buddy's birthday. Is one of my best friends, who I actually went to Green Bay versus Chicago in Soldier Field back in 2008. It was, I think you and I talked about, Myles, it was the coldest game recorded at Soldier Field. So happy birthday to him. We snuck in some booze into Soldier Field. It was the only way to stay warm that day. So shout out to him. Happy birthday, Danny. Really look fondly on our Bears memories together, and look forward to making some more here in the future.
Right on, man. Happy birthday, Danny, right? Is that Danny?
Yes, sir.
Nice.
Oh, listener, maybe still tuning in.
Hey, and Chris might make an appearance as a Cowboys fan. He's one of the more entertaining people in my life, so it might be good to get his Cowboys fan perspective on this podcast. We'll have to see if he's up to it. But if people enjoy this podcast, sir, what do they need to be doing here?
They need to spike that like button, Myles. Leave us a comment. Let us know how we're doing. Be gentle. We're on the road. We're 50% of us are on the road this week. Definitely subscribe, and talk about us at your next tailgate.
Absolutely. And quick shout out to the show sponsors brought to you by Life Leaf Remedies. We are creating natural remedies for y'all to feel better today. We want to create products to help you take better care of yourself and your family. So check us out, see some of the things that we're doing. We got a lot more coming, so stay tuned. Follow us on social media and check us out at lifeleafremedies.com. Get free shipping and 10% off your order when you subscribe to a product, and we want y'all to feel better today. So that's it, man. That is a wrap for this week. We got a go pack go for me. Hey, man, next time we talk, the Packers will be victorious. 1-1 record.
Well, I'll sign off because you're obviously getting a little bit delusional here as we go into the evening. But I will say this: friends don't let friends be Packer fans, and bear down. Thank you guys for listening.
Hey, the Bears still suck. The Bears.
The Bears.